Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for attending this session called Going Global. Before we begin, I just want to get a quick survey of the room. And the way I like for you to respond to the questions is just give a little clap, okay? So how many of you are CEOs of your own company right now? Keep it going, keep it going. How many people are entrepreneurs? Keep it going. How many of you all are ambassadors for a company that you work for? And how many of you all are enjoying this conference so far? Keep it going, keep it going. Clap for yourselves for attending this conference. Really keeping the energy. My name is Brittany. Hardin. I work at Yelp, and I'm a senior account executive and the chair of our diversity and inclusion for New York. Okay, it gives me great pride and great pleasure to stand here today and have you all sit here as we distribute knowledge about going global. So taking everything that you're doing now and expanded it, not just nationwide, but overseas as well. And we're doing this right here in Harlem. Okay? I want to thank Clayton and everybody that's representing Silicon Harlem for having us here, okay? The way we're going to do this agenda is I'll have my panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll talk about 3 important things for any company right now. 1 is your platform. What are you using to really spread your message across international waters? 2, products and branding. So what is your product? How are you branding it? And does it relate not only in the US, but overseas as well? The last thing that we'll discuss is people, okay? Are you hiring the right people to spread your message, your product, and your brand, and your platform? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right.
Talking about sounding good, can you use the mic?
Oh, you want me to use the mic? Can you guys hear me better?
Yes.
Oh, that sounds nice. Yes. All right, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Graham Ashcraft, and I'm with Etsy. My primary role at Etsy is working on advocacy efforts. So what that means is we have 1.7 million sellers on our platform, and a lot of those are small micro businesses that are jack of all trades, have to do everything. A lot of times don't realize that there are challenges and barriers in policy that restrict them from growing. And so our team looks out for them and identifies areas like internet sales tax, net neutrality, portable benefits, and we advocate on those issues to try to help make change, to lower those barriers, to help small micro businesses start and grow and thrive in this economy.
All right, fantastic. Thank you all so much for coming out today. I'm Darnell Holloway. I'm the Director of Business Outreach at Yelp. A little bit about me. I joined Yelp in 2009 when it was still very much a startup in San Francisco. My first role at Yelp is I was actually one of the first groups of local account managers at Yelp, and what that meant is that I was helping businesses get onboarded onto the site. So I spent the first 2 years of my career working with small business owners, in fact, talking to hundreds of people on the phone every day, teaching them how to get set up on the site, and also sometimes playing the role of therapist for business owners as well. So I also come from a family of small business owners, so I deeply understand the passion that is behind every single one of your businesses. Since the account management days, I've taken over business outreach at Yelp, and so what my team focuses on is educating business owners about small businesses about social media, but also community building on the business owner front as well, all across North America, Europe, and Australia.
Hello, my name is Danny Kadishson. I'm the Director of Economic Development in the Mayor's Office for International Affairs. First, I just want to thank Silicon Harlem for having us and for all the work they do. Really honored to be here. So the Mayor's Office for International Affairs acts as the liaison between the city and the international community. We also do best practices sharing, and we do actually joint programming with the international community here. And my role as Director of Economic Development, I feel very honored to do because it's sort of a connection of what I used to do for the federal government in economic development and in foreign policy. So we're going to be talking about how we can help companies here go global. But really quick, I just want to talk about 2 things that the city is doing on the inbound side to try to bring businesses into New York City from around the world, and to do so in a way that's intentional and is good for all of New York City. So the two programs I want to briefly mention are the Tech Talent Pipeline. So some of you might be familiar with that, but it's about 6 months of free training for folks that do not have a background in technology. And after that, they get a paid internship here in the city, and oftentimes after that, full-time employment in a good-paying job. So what we are doing in my office is trying to build a connector between the pipeline of international businesses and startups that are coming from around the world into New York and this pipeline of homegrown talent with the Tech Talent Pipeline, trying to connect the two. The second program is called the International Innovators Initiative, Into NYC. And that just launched about 5 months ago. And it's a program to bring up to 80 entrepreneurs from around the world, help them get visas if they start their business here in New York. And we're actually placing them on 7 City University of New York campuses in all 5 boroughs. And so one of them here is at the Zahn Center at City College. So they're going to actually work out of a shared working space on those CUNY campuses. And the intention is that they will create jobs in those communities and hire people from those communities. My office made a big effort also to make sure that we're attracting women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs from all around the world. We're really intentional about, as the tech sector grows and the innovation sector grows in New York City, we embrace that, but we want it to reflect the city and not a microcosm of it. So with that, I will stop talking, and as we do the discussion, I'm sure we'll talk about how we can help businesses here go global.
That is amazing. Give a round of applause for what the mayor's office is doing. Especially if you're a woman in the audience and you have your own business, that is phenomenal. So the first topic that we'll discuss is platforms. And this question is just for the whole panel, and we'll start with Danny again. All right. Describe your company or organization's platform and how it helps businesses reach a broader audience.
Sure. So we really do 3 main things to help New York City companies go global. The first is we can help you sort of overcome that, all right, where do I start question. So we can give a little bit of guidance on strategy, on what other companies have done, on making a checklist. So you know that there are these 8 things that you have to do to start going global. I mean, we have people on the panel here who can make it even easier, but if you are looking to do it in a different way, we can help you kind of understand the different steps you need to take. The second thing that we can do is connect you with our partners at the state and federal level, because they have other programs that can help. The state actually has money. Unfortunately, we don't have grants, but the state does. And they actually have some grants for some really incredible programs to help New York State companies go international. And the third thing we can do is connect you with the international community that's here in New York. And I think that's actually the most unique thing that we can offer as a city. There's over 100 countries that have permanent economic government representatives here in New York City. And we can make those connections for you to try to ease your passage into those countries, and that we're happy to do that.
Very nice.
Go down the row. All right. Just by show of hands, how many people here have used Yelp to find a business at some point before? Almost everybody in the room. All right, great. So there are 20 million businesses listed on Yelp. And on the consumer side, there's 92 million people using Yelp on mobile devices, another 73 million using Yelp via desktop. And the whole purpose why people are on the site is because they intend to buy a product or service. 82% of people said that they're there. If they're looking at your business, they have a very strong intent to buy something. So our whole mission is all about connecting consumers that have that need with businesses, or from the business owner's front, it's basically where the world comes to meet your business. There's 3 main components. There's obviously the review side. I think everybody knows of Yelp, thinks of Yelp as a review site. There are 108 million reviews that have been written on the site since inception, and that number continues to grow. And that's the primary reason why people are there looking at your business. But there are also transactions transactional components of Yelp, and that's something that we've started to invest more in over the last couple of years. In fact, we've acquired a few companies, and we've also partnered with a few companies like Deal Booker, Demand Force, to basically allow consumers to transact directly with businesses right then and there on your business's page. And then, of course, there's the search component too. If people are there on the site, it's because they probably have never heard of your business. They just have a general need for the product or service that you need, and then they're going to do their research right then and there, and then hopefully transact with you. So I would say when it comes to going global, there's definitely a strong local component of Yelp where we can help you expand within your city or maybe even region. So I would think of Yelp as one of several tools in your tool belt when it comes to going global.
How many people have shopped on Etsy before? Most people. Anybody sell on Etsy currently? A few, good. So as I mentioned in my introduction, Etsy has 1.7 million sellers around the globe. And then anybody want to take a guess at how many people we have buying on Etsy? Plus or minus 20 million. Under 20 million, raise your hand. Over 20 million. Yeah, we have 26 million buyers on our site, and that's worldwide. Our fastest growth that we are seeing on the site right now is in our international markets. We started in 2005, and we have a very, very large footprint here in the United States, and so our big opportunities now are internationally, and that's where we're seeing a lot of our growth. Our site is translated into 6 different languages, fully translated, and there's support in a myriad of other languages. We have people that buy and sell on Etsy in nearly every country in the world. So when we talk about going global, Etsy is truly a global company. We have offices in Canada, the UK, Australia, France, Germany. So we're based here in Brooklyn. So not only are we focused on going global from our Brooklyn office, we recognize the importance of having people on the ground in our other markets. So in terms of how Etsy kind of works for you in going global, if it's the right type of platform for you. It is a platform where you sell handcrafted goods or vintage items or supplies. So it is more of a niche platform for what you can sell. But we work hard to surface your items across the world based on what people are looking for, not just where it is locally that you're shopping, but we want to get the right item in front of you when somebody's shopping, no matter where it is. And we give you the control over, do you want to even ship internationally and sell internationally, or do you just want to stay national and kind of scale up as you're ready? But as a platform and being able to go global, that's our mindset now. And we'll talk more about later kind of challenges around that, but we approach everything now from a global mindset and making sure that we keep that in mind.
That's very good. It sounds like everybody on this panel is touching some aspect of going global within their companies. Now, each one of your companies does that very well, but what are some other platforms that can help springboard people who want to go global?
Etsy.
Outside of Etsy.
I think, I was thinking about this question a lot, and we know that there's the eBays, there's Amazons, and there's lots of different platforms, but I think kind of where I kept coming back to on this question is, what's the platform that's going to work best for you? Etsy, we try to make things easy for you, but there is a time commitment. There's an investment of energy to get up and running on Etsy and making sure that you do your part to make sales on Etsy. We can't do everything for you. And so when you're thinking about other platforms, I think it's a similar question. Not just who's going to get you the broadest reach or whatever, but who's going to work hard for you? Who are you willing to kind of invest with and not in a year or so have this, expansive switching cost to go elsewhere? But to really think about beyond the reach that it's going to get you, who's going to work for you, and even if it's not an Etsy and Amazon and eBay, something like that, maybe you want to break into Germany. Maybe there's a local German platform that would be even better for you than something that we're more familiar stateside.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, and also I love what he said, you really want to think about what your personal goals are within your business and what your roadmap is. And just to piggyback off that last point, there are other marketplaces that are dominant in other regions. So just to walk down a quick list. So we're all familiar with Amazon and eBay, as you mentioned, for North America. But let's say Latin America is next on your roadmap. You would want to look at a Mercado Libre, for example. Folks are not familiar with that. There's a dominant marketplace for the Japanese market. It's called Rakuten. Rakuten. If you're looking to break into the Chinese market, there's Tmall by Alibaba. So I would definitely do research, but again, coming back to what is your strategy, what is on your roadmap, and what are the international markets that you want to focus on, and then I would also look at what are the dominant marketplaces in those particular regions, and those were just a few that I just rattled off for you for those markets.
Very good. Now, before you go, how many of you all have started your roadmap to where you want your company to go, if it's international or nationwide? How many of you have actually started that? Okay. All right. Not bad. All right. Go ahead.
I was just going to say Etsy. So I represent the mayor's office, but I do really want to promote the state and federal government because we each kind of play different parts. And so the state government I alluded to before has these grants that can help you. They can actually pay for you to go internationally to present at a trade show. So if you've identified a trade show and you think that it could help you to export your product, you can apply for that funding at the state level. And then at the federal level, what's really unique about them is they have federal staff on the ground in a lot of countries around the world. And they're there for the purpose of helping American companies export. So they can help you find partners, they can vet partners, they can do matchmaking. So in terms of other platforms, I would say if you come to us and we're not the right people to help you, if you need the grants or you need on-the-ground vetting of a potential partner or matchmaking, we'll connect you with our other government partners. One
thing to chime in on what he just said, trade shows are actually really great for networking and just business opportunities. My team does a lot of trade shows just as a vendor, but in my experience, we find ourselves at Javits Center almost every couple months. So I would definitely look at, as a starting point, look at Javits Center's event schedule and see what trade shows, because a lot of major and international trade shows do happen right here in New York. And that's a really good opportunity for you to not just network, but also get some really great ideas for your business as well.
So our goal here, ladies and gentlemen, is to make sure that you walk out of this room feeling empowered with all of the knowledge. So at the end of the session, we will have a question and answer segment. And then at the end of the actual event, you can network with anybody on the panel, okay? Just to lighten the mood, though, do either of you have an anecdotal success story of businesses you've seen having success in the field? And we'll do this Apollo style. So if it's not funny, we'll get.
I'm just gonna get yanked off the stage. I like it. There are so many on Etsy. I think that's just what's so great about our platform. A lot of people use Etsy as a proof of concept platform to see does an idea stick, does a new product stick, and it's very little investment to you to see if it works, see if there's interest in it. But we have sellers that try that and it just takes off. I was just with a seller named Ruben from New York. We were down in D.C. Meeting with Congress, and his business is called Domestics. It's a women's fashion line. Started in 2014, only on Etsy. It's now his full-time job. He's been accepted into an incubator program in St. Louis for fashion. So his business has really taken off, and he just did it on Etsy. So that's just one quick story.
Was that funny, ladies and gentlemen?
I don't know if my story is going to be funny, but hopefully it's inspiring. I think we're talking a lot about people that are sellers of products. I'll go with somebody who's a provider of a service. But I know a gentleman, his name is Jay Sofer, and he is the owner of Lockbusters, locksmith company here in Manhattan. In 2009, he was basically broke and living in his mom's garage. And it was during the recession, and his father had been a locksmith, so he decided to go into the family business, but he had a marketing budget of zero. And so what he did was, the first thing that he did was he thought about what his brand was and how he's going to position himself differently than locksmiths in Manhattan. I think there's a stigma about locksmiths. You envision this sleazy guy that said it was $100 on the phone, then shows up that'll be $250 actually. And you want to get into your apartment, right? Okay, so we got some humor in there. All right, there we go. We got some laughs. Okay. So he decided that he wanted to be the honest locksmith, the really friendly person that you can trust. And so what he did was he set up an ad on Craigslist, because back in the day, Craigslist was a big generator of leads for service businesses. And he also set up a Yelp page. And he put up pictures of him and his puppy on his Yelp page. And he started to generate business, started to generate positive reviews. And again, with a marketing budget of zero, just Craigslist and his Yelp business page. And, word got out that, hey, there's this guy, he's super cheap, he's fast, he's reliable, and he's also really friendly. And he's got pictures of him and his dog on his page. This is amazing. He ended up becoming the top-rated locksmith in all of Manhattan. Now, it doesn't stop there. He, because of the success of his business, ended up getting so many calls that he ended up ultimately having to start to franchise his business out, or got the opportunity to franchise his business out. So today, he's no longer the person that's going around and unlocking the doors, but he's got multiple cars around Manhattan. He's also selling his brand to other people in other markets. Does not stop there. He also recently filmed a couple of pilots for a reality show about him and all of the crazy things that his staff sees when they unlock people's doors in New York City. So you want to talk about going global and rags to riches. He basically took his brand, which was himself, and being the honest locksmith that has this kind of noble purpose, and expanded it into a business that he was able to franchise, and ultimately might end up being on TV, and everyone will know what his brand is then. So, yeah.
That was good. Was that funny, ladies and gentlemen? All right.
Anyone can do it.
I represent the government. We don't really do we don't do humor. But I will say, what's not funny is breaking the law. And so, the one other thing that we were able to do just a couple weeks ago is there's a great New York startup that wants to sell. They built this great hardware. They want to sell it in airports around the world, and they were kind of ready to go. They were looking at creating these partnerships. They had not yet looked into whether or not they needed a federal export license to do so, and they're probably going to need one. And that's kind of a big deal if they had done it without going to that. So we can also kind of flag things for you as you're going through the process.
Like, all of these stories are really inspiring, and this just goes to set the stage that any one of you in this room can have your own reality show. Any one of you in this room can be an international name or brand, and any one of you in this room can also break the law. So please make sure that you follow procedure. So all of these stories are really, really good. The next segment that we're transitioning into is products and branding. How many of you all have an actual product that is like physical that you can hold and touch? And how many of you have like a brand that you are elated to talk about and really sell every day? Okay, go ahead. The first question that we have are, what are the challenges of selling products across multiple borders? And we'll ask Esty.
I think you'll like this answer from the government's perspective. Compliance, I think, is a big deal for Etsy sellers in going global. Understanding international tax laws, understanding customs, all of that, not just from the individual shop owner that is selling and being educated on that, but also in many cases having to educate the people buying from you. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of people that sell a very valuable item to somebody in the UK. Let's call it $500. I don't know what the exact amount is. They sell it to them in the UK. And the UK buyer goes to pick it up from customs, and then they learn that there's a value tax because it is over a certain threshold that they weren't aware of. And then they send the item back and ask for a refund. So being educated about those different international trade and tax laws, not only for yourself and being compliant, but also being able to say, hey, if you're buying this and you're in the UK, be aware you're responsible for paying all of your own value added tax bills. So that's I think one of the biggest things in terms of going global with products that we see at Etsy.
Okay, and then Darnell. So this goes back to kind of what you do at Yelp with focusing on local businesses. How can a brand adapt for local businesses to become global?
Well, I think the example of Jay is interesting because he built a very strong brand, and then he was able to then take that brand and basically sell to other people to franchise with. And one of the things that we see are businesses that really focus on improving the lives of their customers have a lot more success. And in fact, this is actually backed up by data. I used the phrase noble purpose earlier, but there is actually a study called Noble Purpose. And what they found, they looked at thousands of global brands across multiple countries. And what they found is that the brands that are focused on improving the lives of their customers exceed the companies that are only focused on financial targets by about 3x. So then coming back to you and your business, how this applies, think about what your mission statement is. Do you have a mission, or do you just sell stuff? And if you can apply a mission to the product that you have, something that is actually improving the lives of people, and you can make that apparent to your target audience, you can start to develop a really strong brand that is ultimately going to help you have a lot of success than if you're only focused on selling stuff.
Very nice. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the grants that I mentioned before can be used to adapt your product for an international market. So it's the state, New York State grant. You can use it for translation. You can use it for changing your product to adapt to international markets. You can use it for local advertising in those international markets. So when it comes to sort of like adaptation, that grant is something to look at.
Very nice. So with everything that you guys are doing for your product and your brand, you want to make sure that you touch on each one of these examples as well as the notes that they've given you. The last section that we'll do, and we'll have about 5 minutes 5 minutes for questions. We're having too much fun here, ladies and gentlemen. But we want to make sure that we give you all of the information that you need. The last section is people, and we'll actually start with Danny. So Danny, how do you find good partners globally, and how do you engage foreign governments if part of your business expansion will require interaction with government agencies?
So on the government piece, if you think that part of your expansion is going to require sort of working with the government, or if you want to explore whether they have incentives, or you've sort of gotten to a short list and now you want to research more, again, I really think it's a great resource and unique to New York City that we can help introduce you to 4, 5 representatives of different countries in an afternoon at the cost of a subway ride. And I think that it puts you in the driver's seat if you're having those meetings here in New York, because they know that you can go down the street and meet with another country. So I would say to meet governments, if that is something that you need to do or want to do, that's something that we're happy to facilitate. And we can talk to you more about it, and I'll be here afterwards. And in terms of finding partners on the ground, the one thing I'll mention again is the federal commerce global presence of people that do vetting. They actually do charge a slight fee, the federal government, for this to take clients, but they will vet your partners. They will introduce you to potential companies that you can partner with.
And how many are at that level right now where you're kind of tapping into that yet? No one? So this is all, you're preparing to get there, right?
I think we got a question over here.
Okay, perfect. So,
Quick question. Just to touch back on, what was the name of the program?
The federal one?
Yeah.
So that's just the U.S. Department of Commerce, and it's the basically they have people in not every country, but in a lot of countries, and it's called the Commercial Service, U.S. Commercial Service. That one's called Global New York.
and it's the cost of a subway ride. He wasn't specific if it was 2015 or 2000 or 2011. All right, Darnell, why is it important to have firmly grounded guiding principles and company values before you begin to expand your business?
Yeah, well, on that front, I can speak from just kind of a Yelp corporate perspective. But just to go back to what I was talking about, definitely encourage folks to Google that Noble Purpose study after this, because it's just fascinating. And I think this does kind of tie into then expanding and hiring more people, where if you have a brand that is that powerful, your employees are also going to be more inspired to work for you. But then also that allows you to set some guiding principles and corporate values by which you hold yourself, but by which you also expect your employees to hold themselves too. And this definitely comes into play as you expand. So, with Yelp, we were founded in San Francisco, but today we've got, we're basically operating in 32 countries. And we've got people all across North America, all across Europe, and also in Australia. And when we hire folks, we basically do just kind of this sense check of, do these people fit these values by which we adhere to? And whether you're in an office in Dublin or San Francisco or New York, you'll find that there is this sort of common culture that exists within the company across all of these different regions. And it's really quite an incredible thing. So if you can have a brand that, at its very core is driven by a mission, and then you also have some guiding principles, that's really going to help you as you're growing and expanding to make sure that all of your employees down the line are also adhering to that as well.
And then, Graham, piggyback off of that, because you're talking about growing locally, but with your company, you guys are actually hiring and expanding nationally. How do you keep that same brand and that values and keep people dedicated to the overall mission of the company when you're expanding?
I think a lot of it starts from the top down, making sure that you as the owner, the CEO, are always talking about, first identifying what are your values and your guiding principles going to be, and then constantly communicating those to the people that you bring on board. So at Etsy, the way I can speak to that is when I came on board in 2014, we had somewhere around 500 employees. We now have almost 900 employees with that growth happening all across the world. And still, our CEO, Chad, keeps talking about our values and our mission, and that filters down to the senior vice presidents, that filters down to the directors, to the managers, and then to the individual contributors. And so it creates this culture where everybody understands the values. And when you do that, it really positions you to handle the bumps in the road. To, like when we went public, when you become a public company, your mission becomes maximize the shareholders' value. Etsy, that's never been our ultimate mission. And in the midst of going public, we've had some bumps and bruises, but we've actually kept to our core values of being about people, planet, and profit. Say, we're going to figure out how to maximize your value, but not at the cost of everything else we've deemed as important and valuable to us. So I think just starting from the beginning, always talking about it, always figuring out how can you maintain that. A big part of that is how do you take care of your employees? How are you going to provide for them? How are you going to continue to inspire them? Because your company is only ever going to be as good as the passion your employees show. And they're going to have that passion if they feel like you're taking care of them. I can give you personal story on that. I just had my third child back in February. Woo. Thank you. Yeah.
Round of applause for that. 3.
And once my daughter was born, in the midst of my initial leave, Etsy announced a new leave policy, which is tremendous. And they told me while I was on leave, said, hey, we want you to go ahead and take advantage of this policy. There was a lot to do with that because it was 6 months off. And that's not a norm for any industry, especially not for men. But what that's done to me is that said, hey, Etsy, I'm yours. When I come back, I'm ready to rock and roll because that means a lot to me. So how you take care of your employees, that's a long game. That's not going to necessarily be the short-term investment that is going to provide a quick bang, but that plays out in the long term.
That's very true. You have to be passionate about your product, your mission, your values, so that you can filter it down to your employees. You got to lead by example. With whatever you do, your product, your brand, even personally, you have to lead by example. We have time for maybe 3, 2, 1 good question. All right, we have room for 3 questions, and then we'll have to wrap it up, as Anthony said. Who has questions for this magnificent panel? Go ahead.
I actually have a question specifically for the Yelpers, but I guess anybody can answer it. When you're moving into, actually, can we back up a second? I use Yelp, and the things that I look for, and I think most Americans look for, are the pictures, the reviews, and the rating systems. But I was wondering if the things that people value in other countries matter the same way they do in America. And what type of time so that when you do launch in a different country, you're launching in a way that is respectful of the culture that's there?
I'll let Darnell answer that.
Yes, so photos and the content that you add are incredibly important, and particularly in international markets, because there are less reviews internationally than there are in North America, and that's just because of how we've grown. We started in one city, and then we've continued to grow market by market. But the way that one of my engineers put it to me recently when we were talking about this is, let's say that there's 2 business pages created on Yelp the same day. And one business goes on and they just put their address and their phone number, and that's it. And then the other business goes and puts that information, but they also add some really great photos. The business owner fills out the section about what they specialize in, their history, et cetera, and then fills out every single section. This, let's call it page number 2, is going to get more traffic, and the rate at which they're going to get their first review is accelerated relative to the other business that only put just their address, name, and phone number. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that, by adding content, you're literally giving Google more content to crawl. So we don't have a formal partnership with Google, but they do index Yelp results fairly high because there's so much content on our site. The other thing is that we're finding that photos are incredibly important, because that's how a lot of people are making, ultimately, it's the reviews, and they're gonna look at your photos. And that's gonna be a big part in how they're making their buying decisions. But also, photos are surfaced as thumbnails in the organic search results on Yelp. So if you have no photos, it's just less visual stimulation for people to wanna click on that versus if you have photos.
Another question? Go ahead.
It's more of a request. I mean, I'm digital, this is for Etsy particularly. I love everything they do, but I find that when I was teaching computer classes at the library in another city, that people who did crafts knew nothing about Etsy. I was wondering if you could go global by going local, especially to the minority community. Say, hey, if you're a crafter and you do things, this is how easy it is, and do some kind of a ramp-up effort just here.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I didn't even. It's an appeal, and I should have mentioned in my introduction. Actually, a program I manage is called Craft Entrepreneurship, and it's exactly that. It's an in-person local program designed to teach people from underserved communities how to start an online business. So here in New York City, we have a partnership with Small Business Services, and they offer this Craft Entrepreneurship class in all 5 boroughs. So if you just go to the SBS website, you can see the Craft Entrepreneurship Program, the upcoming dates, encourage people to apply to do that. But that is just, in general, something we're very aware of. We know it's kind of a fairly homogenous site and how it's just organically grown. It's something we're aware of and that we hope to kind of address over the next 3 years to say, how do we become more inclusive, make this economy work for everybody?
We have time for one more. Go ahead.
Just a segue, that to do with the way that your commanders and your data analytics function, so that in the data set, because obviously you have underrepresented population, you also have underrepresented population in your search results. Are you looking at that at all?
Say more about that.
So you have a population that is underrepresented, only 1/3 is using broadband. So naturally, in the data set that you are using for recommendations, these segments are less prominent. And how do you compensate for this diversity?
We try to be pretty neutral in how we surface items when you search for something. What we are looking for is, so if you've ever searched on Etsy, you see that items have a title. If you scroll down the bottom, they have tags. That carries a lot of weight in how you get searched. For search phrases, how do the actual words match? Your photos matter a lot. Your reviews matter a lot. So we try to base things with kind of objective factors like that, because truth be known, we as a company don't collect a lot of demographic information about our sellers. So we actually don't know, like a full page of results, what that person's background is like. It's more just about how does the algorithm work for that particular search in the item.
So it sounds like some things to notate is pictures. Make sure your photos look very good. Make sure that you have them listed so that people can see, because people buy with their eyes, they eat with their eyes. So make sure that your photos on any type of platform, whether it's Etsy or Yelp, actually look really, really nice. That's all the time that we have. We actually went over. You're giving me that smile.
Can I give everyone my email?
Oh, sure. Afterwards.
So just
afterwards.
it's just ibusiness@cityhall.nyc.gov. If that can be helpful, reach out.
Thank you. Give it.
iBusiness, like international, so ibusiness@cityhall.nyc.gov. And that's if we can be helpful or if you have ideas for us and how we can help on the inbound side or on the outbound side. Just coming here, we already got a new idea. We launched a website for international businesses that are looking at New York. And through talking with Ken and folks here, I think we're going to have a new featured neighborhoods section of the page where we talk about Harlem, when we talk about some of the other neighborhoods we want them to know about, because too many of the startups I talk with from around the world only know about the Flatiron. Now they're starting to know about Dumbo. But just by being here, we got this great new idea. So if you have ideas or questions, please email me.
All right, round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you all.
And thank you all for coming.